Captain Lee Dongwu walked through the long hallways of the Galactic Federation station. His boots made soft sounds on the strange metal floor that seemed to glow with its own light. The walls curved upward like the inside of a giant egg, covered with symbols from dozens of alien worlds. Behind him, Ambassador Park Ji-hai checked her diplomatic files one last time. Her face showed no worry, but Lee had worked with her for 3 years. He could see the tiny lines around her eyes that appeared when she was thinking hard about problems. Dr. Kim Tae-ho followed them both, carrying his portable scanner and a thick folder of research papers. The young scientist looked excited rather than nervous. This was his first time meeting so many alien species in one place. "Remember," Park said quietly as they approached the massive doors of the council chamber, "we are here to prove that humanity deserves full membership in the Federation. Some of them already like us. Others do not trust us yet," Lee nodded. He had read all the reports. The plant-like elder oak spoke well of humans. The floating gas beings called the Whispers thought humanity showed promise. But the insect-like Vextai and the crystal creatures called Kurath had voted against every human proposal for 2 years. The doors opened without a sound. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that went up toward a domed ceiling. Strange lights floated in the air, providing soft illumination that worked for all the different types of eyes in the room. Lee had seen pictures, but being here felt different. The elder oak delegates looked like walking trees with faces carved into their bark. The Whispers floated in clear containers filled with colored gas that swirled and changed as they spoke. The fish-like Aquari sat in water-filled tanks that somehow let their voices carry clearly through the chamber. But it was the Vextai that made Lee's skin crawl slightly. They stood nearly 2 meters tall on 4 legs with 2 arms that ended in sharp claws. Their heads moved in quick, jerky motions, and their compound eyes reflected the floating lights like black mirrors. Everything about them screamed danger to the primitive part of Lee's brain. The Korath were just as unsettling in a different way. They looked like living crystal formations with bodies that seemed to be made of clear, colored stone. When they spoke, their voices rang like bells, beautiful but somehow cold. At the center of the chamber sat the Federation Chancellor, an ancient elder oak whose bark showed the deep grooves of centuries. Chancellor Rootwise had been fair to humanity so far, but even he seemed tired today. "The human delegation may approach," Rootwise announced, his voice like wind through leaves. Lee led his team to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. He felt hundreds of alien eyes watching their every move, some curious, some friendly, but too many hostile. Ambassador Park stepped forward and bowed in the traditional Federation greeting. "Honored members of the Galactic Federation, we thank you for this opportunity to address your concerns about humanity's application for full membership." A harsh clicking sound filled the chamber. Hive speaker Clickthara of the Vextai rose from her seat, her claws scraping against the metal platform. When she spoke, her voice sounded like grinding metal. "Concerns," she clicked. "Is that what you call our evidence that your species is too dangerous for civilized space?" Lee felt Kim tense beside him. The young scientist had hoped this would be a peaceful discussion of trade agreements and cultural exchange. Instead, it was starting to feel like a trial. Park kept her voice calm and diplomatic. "Hive speaker, we understand that humanity's history contains violence, as does the history of every species that achieved spaceflight. We have grown beyond our primitive past, have you?" The question came from Resonance Prime Velamon of the Kurath. When the crystal being spoke, the sound rang through the chamber like struck glass. "Your species conquered your homeworld through violence. You turned other living beings into tools for your use. You fought wars that killed millions of your own kind. And yet," Park replied, "we also created art, music, literature. We formed alliances and friendships across our world. We learned to work together." Clickthara's compound eyes focused on Park with disturbing intensity. "You learned to work together to become better predators. Your entire evolution shaped you to hunt and kill. That nature does not simply disappear because you built starships." Dr. Kim stepped forward, unable to stay quiet any longer. "With respect, Hive Speaker, you are misunderstanding human evolution. Yes, we were hunters, but we were also gatherers, builders, and caretakers. We formed bonds not just with our own species, but with others. Bonds of domination," Velamon chimed in. "You enslaved other species to serve your needs." "We formed partnerships," Kim insisted. "We took care of animals and they took care of us. We work together for mutual benefit. The clicking sound from Clicthara grew louder, and Lee realized it was laughter. Not pleasant laughter, but the sound a predator might make before attacking. "Listen to yourself, young human," she said. "You speak of partnership with beings that had no choice in the matter. You took wolves and turned them into dogs. You captured horses and made them carry you. You kept cattle in pens to eat their flesh. These are not partnerships. These are the actions of apex predators who take whatever they want." The chamber filled with murmurs. Lee could see that many of the delegates were nodding in agreement. The Aquari representatives' gills fluttered nervously. Several of the smaller species had moved their seats further away from the human delegation. Chancellor Rootwise raised one branch-like arm for silence. "The concerns raised by our Vextai and Kurath colleagues are not without merit. Humanity's application has been under review for standard years precisely because of these issues." Park tried one more diplomatic approach. "Chancellor, we ask that you judge us not by our distant past but by our actions since joining the galactic community. We have helped with disaster relief on 4 worlds. We have shared our medical knowledge freely. We have never shown aggression toward any Federation member. Because you have been kept weak," Clicthara snapped. "You have no real military in space. You depend on our protection. But what happens when you grow strong? What happens when your predator nature demands expansion and conquest?" Lee felt his patience running thin. These aliens had already decided humanity was guilty. They were not here to listen to evidence or reason. They wanted to reject Earth's application, and they were just looking for excuses. "You speak of our nature as if you know us," he said, his voice carrying the authority of a starship captain. "But you judge us by your own fears, not by our actions." Velamon's crystal form pulsed with dark colors. "Your actions on your homeworld speak clearly enough, Captain Lee. You wiped out entire species. You poisoned your own air and water in pursuit of resources. You created weapons capable of destroying all life on your planet. These are not the actions of beings ready for galactic civilization." The murmurs in the chamber grew louder. Lee could see that public opinion was turning against them. Even some of their supporters looked troubled by the accusations. Dr. Kim looked around the chamber with growing understanding. "This is not really about membership, is it?" he said quietly. "You have already decided. You brought us here to tell us no." Chancellor Rootwise looked uncomfortable, his bark creaking as he shifted in his seat. "Dr. Kim, the Federation must consider the safety of all member species. The evidence suggests that predator species, no matter how advanced, eventually return to their violent nature." "What evidence?" Park demanded. "Show us this evidence." Clicthara's compound eyes glittered with satisfaction. "Very well, Ambassador. Since you insist on proof rather than wisdom, we will show you exactly what we mean. We will demonstrate why apex predators cannot be trusted among civilized beings." The hive speaker made a gesture with her claws. Hidden panels in the chamber walls began to slide open. Lee heard mechanical sounds like heavy machinery moving in the walls around them. "What are you doing?" he asked, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm. "We are showing you the truth about predators," Velamon chimed, her crystal form now pulsing with excited energy. "We are showing you what happens when a civilized being meets a true apex predator. We will see if your diplomatic words hold up when faced with real danger." The mechanical sounds grew louder. Kim grabbed his scanner, suddenly very afraid of what was about to happen. Park moved closer to Lee, her diplomatic training forgotten in the face of genuine threat. "This is madness," Lee said. "If you have some kind of weapon or creature, you are putting everyone in this chamber at risk." "Only the guilty need fear the truth," Clicthara replied. "Observe well, members of the Federation. Watch how the humans react when they meet death incarnate. Their true nature will be revealed." The last panel slid open with a sound like thunder. The sound that emerged from the hidden chamber made every human instinct scream danger. It was part roar, part shriek, and part something else that no Earth creature had ever made. The noise bounced off the curved walls of the council chamber, growing louder and more terrifying with each echo. Captain Lee Dongwu felt his heart rate spike. Beside him, Ambassador Park Ji-hai took an involuntary step backward. Dr. Kim Tae-ho raised his scanner with shaking hands, trying to get readings on whatever was coming through that opening. "Behold," Hive Speaker Clicthara announced, her voice filled with satisfaction. "The Sekthorak of Kethmoran, the apex predator of a death world, a creature so dangerous that even our most advanced civilizations flee rather than face it. The thing that stepped into the council chamber was a nightmare made real. It stood 3 meters tall on 4 powerful legs, each ending in claws that could tear through metal. Its body was covered in thick chitinous armor that looked like black ceramic plates fused together. Along its spine, rows of sharp spikes caught the chamber's floating lights. But it was the head that made Lee's mouth go dry, long and narrow like a crocodile, but larger, with rows of teeth that gleamed like knives. 6 eyes arranged in pairs along the skull, each one glowing with a fierce intelligence. And covering its entire body were patches of skin that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Right now, those patterns blazed angry red and orange. The creature's threat display lit up the chamber like a warning beacon. The Sekhthorak turned its massive head toward the human delegation. All 6 eyes focused on them with predatory intensity. The bioluminescent patterns flared brighter, and the creature let out another bone-shaking roar. Around the chamber, alien delegates pressed back into their seats. The Aquari representative's tank began moving away from the center platform. Several of the smaller species had already activated personal shield generators. For 300 years, Resonance Prime Velemon chimed, her crystal body pulsing with excited energy. No being has successfully tamed or controlled a Sekhthorak. They are pure predator, driven by instinct to hunt and kill. They know no fear, show no mercy, and cannot be reasoned with. Dr. Kim's scanner was going crazy, detecting massive muscle density, reinforced bone structure, and electrical activity that suggested a highly developed nervous system. This creature is incredibly intelligent, he whispered to his companions. Look at the brain activity readings. Intelligence in service of killing, Thara clicked. The Sekhthorak hunts in packs on its homeworld. It can solve complex problems, set traps, and coordinate attacks. It is everything your human ancestors were, but perfected for slaughter. The creature took a step closer to the human delegation. Its claws scraped against the metal floor, leaving deep gouges. The bioluminescent patches on its hide shifted from red to a deeper orange, and strange patterns began moving across its armored skin. Watch carefully, members of the Federation, Velemon announced. We have removed the containment field. The Sekhthorak is free to act according to its nature. Now we will see how the humans react when faced with a true apex predator. Ambassador Park found her voice, though it shook slightly. This is insane. You are putting everyone in danger. That creature could kill dozens before security stops it. Security cannot stop a Sekhthorak, Thara replied. That is precisely the point. When faced with unstoppable death, civilized beings react with appropriate fear. They flee, they hide, they call for help. Only other predators react with aggression. The Sekhthorak was now only 5 meters away from the humans. Its 6 eyes never left them, and its head lowered into what was clearly a hunting posture. The bioluminescent patterns were spreading across its body like wildfire. The patterns, Dr. Kim said suddenly, his scientist brain working even through his fear. Those lights are not random. They are communication. Communication of what? Lee asked, his hand resting on his sidearm. He knew the weapon would be useless against something that armored, but holding it made him feel slightly better. Threat assessment, Kim replied, his eyes fixed on his scanner. It is trying to determine what kind of prey we are. The creature took another step forward. Now Lee could smell it, a mix of alien chemicals and something that reminded him of ozone after lightning. The Sekhthorak opened its massive jaws slightly, revealing rows of teeth that looked like they could bite through starship hull plating. Around the chamber, the alien delegates watched in tense silence. Many had activated recording devices to capture what they expected to be humanity's final test. Some looked excited, others worried, but all of them were waiting to see how the humans would react to imminent death. Any moment now, Thara said, her voice filled with anticipation. They will show their true nature. They will either flee like civilized beings, or they will attack like the predators they are. Either way, we will have our proof that humans cannot be trusted in civilized space. The Sekhthorak gathered its muscles, preparing to spring. Its bioluminescent patterns flared to maximum brightness, bathing the entire chamber in angry red light. The creature's 6 eyes locked onto Captain Lee, identifying him as the primary threat. Dr. Kim's scanner detected the creature's heart rate spiking, its muscle tension increasing, and electrical activity in its brain reaching levels that suggested imminent action. It is going to attack, he warned his companions. Ambassador Park stepped backward again, her diplomatic training providing no guidance for this situation. Her hand reached for the emergency beacon on her belt, the device that would signal their ship to beam them out of danger. Captain Lee stood his ground, though every instinct told him to run. His military training warred with his survival instincts. The creature was too large, too well armored, and too fast for them to fight. But running might trigger its hunting instincts even faster. The Sekhthorak crouched lower, its powerful leg muscles coiling like springs. Its jaws opened wider, and a low rumbling sound came from deep in its throat. The sound was not quite a growl, not quite a roar, but something that spoke to the deepest fears of every prey species. "This is it," Velamon announced. "The moment of truth." How do apex predators react when they meet something stronger than themselves? The creature's bioluminescent patterns suddenly shifted, the angry red changing to a blazing white that hurt to look at directly. It was the final warning before attack, the last chance for prey to flee before death arrived. Every alien in the chamber held their breath. Recording devices captured every detail. Security teams prepared for the aftermath. The Sekhthorak tensed its muscles and prepared to launch itself at the human delegation. In seconds, the test would be over, and the Federation would have their answer about humanity's true nature. The chamber fell into absolute silence except for the creature's breathing and the rapid beating of 3 human hearts. The moment stretched like eternity, balanced on the knife edge between civilization and savagery. Then the Sekhthorak roared and charged. The Sekhthorak launched itself toward the human delegation with terrifying speed. 3 tons of armored muscle and razor-sharp claws covered the distance in heartbeats. Its 6 eyes blazed with predatory focus, and its bioluminescent patterns flared white-hot across its entire body. Every alien delegate in the chamber expected to witness a massacre. They had seen recordings of Sekhthorak attacks before. The creatures moved like liquid death, too fast for most beings to even comprehend, let alone escape. But Captain Lee Dongwu did something that shocked everyone in the chamber, including himself. He stepped forward, not backward like a fleeing prey animal, not to the side to dodge, forward, directly toward the charging predator. And he raised his hand, palm up, fingers spread, in the universal gesture of peace that humans had used for thousands of years. The same gesture he had used to calm frightened dogs as a child on Earth. The same motion he had made to soothe his sister's cat when it was scared during thunderstorms. "Easy," Lee said, his voice calm and steady despite the massive creature bearing down on him. "Easy there, big one. Nobody here wants to hurt you." The Sekhthorak stumbled. The reaction was so unexpected that the creature's coordination failed for a split second. It had been prepared for fleeing prey or attacking predators. It had not been prepared for a being that approached it with calm confidence and spoke in soothing tones. The creature skidded to a stop less than 2 meters from Lee, its claws scraping grooves in the metal floor. Its 6 eyes focused on the human's raised hand with obvious confusion. The bioluminescent patterns across its hide flickered and changed, shifting from aggressive white to uncertain yellow. Dr. Kim Tae-ho watched his scanner readings with amazement. The creature's heart rate was dropping, its muscle tension was decreasing. The electrical activity in its brain was shifting from attack patterns to something that looked almost like curiosity. "Impossible," Hive speaker Clickthara whispered, her compound eyes reflecting disbelief. Ambassador Park Ji-hai found herself moving forward to stand beside Lee. She had no idea why she was doing it, but something in her captain's calm demeanor made her feel that this was the right response. Her diplomatic training had taught her to read body language, and this creature was no longer displaying pure aggression. "That's right," she said softly, using the same tone she had once used to comfort her nephew after nightmares. "We're not going to hurt you. You're safe." The Sekthorak's massive head tilted to one side, a gesture so familiar and dog-like that Kim almost smiled despite the danger. The creature's bioluminescent patterns continued to shift, the angry colors fading to softer blues and greens. Around the chamber, alien delegates sat in stunned silence. This was not how apex predators were supposed to behave. They should be fighting or fleeing, not calmly approaching an unstoppable killing machine and speaking to it like a frightened pet. Dr. Kim stepped forward to join his companions, his scanner still recording every detail of the encounter. His scientific mind was racing with possibilities. "Look at the pattern changes," he whispered to his friends. It's not just threat display. This is communication. The Secthorac lowered its head closer to the humans. Up close they could see that its 6 eyes were not just intelligent but curious. The creature was studying them with the same intensity that they were studying it. The bioluminescence, Kim continued, his excitement overcoming his fear. It's like a language. And right now it's not saying I want to kill you. It's saying something more like, what are you? Captain Lee kept his hand extended toward the creature, not touching but offering contact if the Secthorac chose to accept it. He had learned long ago that forcing contact with frightened animals usually ended badly. Better to let them make the choice. You're not a mindless killer, are you? Lee said quietly. You're just scared and angry. They've kept you locked up, haven't they? No wonder you want to hurt someone. The creature's head moved closer to Lee's outstretched hand. The captain could feel the warmth radiating from its armored hide and smell the strange, ozone-like scent more strongly. But there was no aggression in the movement, only careful investigation. Resonance. Prime Velamon's crystal form pulsed with confused colors. This cannot be happening. Secthorac do not respond to vocal communications from other species. They are pure predators. Maybe, Ambassador Park said, never taking her eyes off the creature. We've been looking at this wrong. Maybe they're not just predators. Maybe they're intelligent beings who have been treated like monsters for so long that they started acting like monsters. Dr. Kim's scanner was detecting something extraordinary. The creature's brain activity was showing patterns he had never seen before. Not the simple stimulus response patterns of a basic predator, but complex thought processes that suggested problem-solving ability and even emotional responses. It's lonely, Kim said suddenly, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Look at these readings. The neural pathways are showing signs of long-term isolation stress. This creature has been alone for a very long time. The Secthorac made a sound unlike any they had heard before. Not a roar or a shriek, but something that sounded almost like a whimper. The bioluminescent patterns on its hide shifted to deep blue, and its massive body seemed to sag with exhaustion. Captain Lee felt his heart break a little. He recognized the signs from his childhood pets and from soldiers under his command who had been through too much. This was not a monster. This was a traumatized being that needed help. How long have you been in that cage? Lee asked gently. How long since you've seen another of your kind? The creature's response was to lower its massive head until it was level with Lee's chest. 6 intelligent eyes looked into his with an expression that transcended species barriers. It was the look of a being that had given up hope and suddenly found a glimmer of kindness in the darkness. Around the chamber, murmurs began to spread among the alien delegates. This was not what they had expected to see. The humans were not fleeing in terror or attacking in rage. They were showing compassion to a creature. That was supposed to be the ultimate example of why predator species could not be trusted. Ambassador Park reached out slowly and placed her hand on the creature's armored flank. The Secthorac did not flinch or pull away. Instead, its bioluminescent patterns brightened to a warm green that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. You're not evil, she whispered. You're just hurt. Dr. Kim moved closer with his scanner, documenting everything. The readings were incredible. The creature was not just tolerating their presence, but actively seeking comfort from them. Its stress hormones were dropping to levels he had not seen since the encounter began. This changes everything, he said to his companions. This creature is not a mindless predator. It's a highly intelligent being that has been traumatized by captivity and isolation. No wonder it attacks anything that approaches. It's been defending itself for who knows how long. The Secthorac made another sound, this one even more clearly a plea for comfort. It pressed its massive head gently against Captain Lee's chest, careful not to hurt him with its size and weight. The gesture was so trusting, so vulnerable, that it brought tears to Park's eyes. Hive speaker Thara's clicking sounds had stopped entirely. She stared at the scene before her with obvious shock. This is impossible, she repeated. Secthorac are killing machines. They cannot be tamed or reasoned with? Maybe, Lee said, gently stroking the armored ridge above the creature's eyes. The problem was never that they couldn't be reasoned with. Maybe the problem was that no one ever tried to understand them. The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted again, this time to colors that seemed to express something like gratitude. It settled down on the chamber floor, its massive bulk folding with surprising grace. Then it did something that made every alien delegate gasp in astonishment. It rolled slightly onto its side and exposed its throat and belly to the humans. Dr. Kim's scanner nearly overloaded with the readings. "It's showing submission," he breathed. "It's telling us that it trusts us completely. This is the ultimate gesture of vulnerability for a predator species." Ambassador Park knelt beside the creature's massive head, her diplomatic robes spreading around her like a protective blanket. The Secthorax's breathing had slowed to a peaceful rhythm, and its 6 eyes were half closed in what looked like contentment. "What have you people done to this poor creature?" she asked, looking around the chamber at the alien delegates. "How long has it been alone? How long has it been treated like a monster instead of a thinking, feeling being?" The silence that followed her questions was deafening. The test that was supposed to prove humanity's predatory nature had instead revealed something much more profound about what it truly meant to be human. Dr. Kim Tae-ho knelt beside the massive Secthorax, his scanner forgotten as he examined the creature with his own eyes. Now that it was calm and lying peacefully beside them, he could see details that had been hidden during its aggressive display. "Look at this," he said softly, pointing to marks along the creature's armored flanks. "These are not natural patterns. These are scars from energy weapons. And here, see how it favors its left rear leg? Old injury, probably from some kind of restraint system." Ambassador Park Ji-hai ran her fingers along the creature's neck ridge, feeling the deep grooves where metal collars had rubbed against the armor for years. "How long have you been their prisoner?" she whispered to the Secthorax. "How long since you've known kindness?" The creature's 6 eyes tracked her movements with calm intelligence. When she spoke, its bioluminescent patterns shifted to soft blue and green colors that seemed to pulse in response to her voice. It was clearly listening, clearly understanding more than anyone had realized. Captain Lee Dong-woo stood and faced the alien delegates, his voice carrying the authority of a starship commander. "You want to talk about predators? Look at what you've done to this being. You've kept it caged, isolated, probably tortured it to make it more aggressive for your little demonstration." Hive speaker Clickthara's compound eyes glittered with defensive anger. The Secthorax was captured on Kethmaran after it killed 17 researchers. "It is a proven danger to civilized beings. 17 researchers who probably approached it with weapons drawn and fear in their hearts," Dr. Kim replied, his scanner now detecting healing injuries all along the creature's body. "Look at these readings. This creature has been systematically abused. The neural patterns show long-term trauma, isolation stress, and defensive conditioning." He stood and walked around the Secthorax, pointing out details that were now visible in the chamber's soft lighting. The stress markings on its carapace indicate years of confinement. The muscle atrophy in its limbs shows it has been kept in spaces too small for proper movement. And the scarring patterns suggest repeated punishment conditioning. The creature lifted its massive head and made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. The bioluminescent patterns across its hide shifted to deeper blues, and it gently nudged Dr. Kim's hand with its snout. "It's trying to communicate," Kim realized. "The light patterns are not just emotional displays. They're actual language. Look, when Ambassador Park spoke kindly to it, the patterns changed to blue-green. When Captain Lee showed confidence, they shifted to yellow-white. It's been trying to talk to us this entire time." Ambassador Park felt tears in her eyes as she continued to stroke the creature's armor. "What have we learned about your species?" she asked the Secthorax. "What do you really eat? How do you live? Are you social creatures?" As if responding to her questions, the creature's patterns became more complex. Waves of blue and green flowed across its hide, occasionally punctuated by flashes of other colors. It was clearly trying to communicate something important. Dr. Kim pulled out his portable translator, a device designed to identify communication patterns in alien species. He had brought it to record first contact protocols, never expecting to use it on a supposedly non-sentient predator. "The patterns are too complex for random emotional responses," he announced after several minutes of analysis. "This is definitely language. Sophisticated language, and the emotional undertones suggest that this creature is trying to explain something about its people." Resonance Prime Velamon's crystal form pulsed with confused colors. "This is impossible. Our xenobiologists studied the Secthorax for decades. They are predators, nothing more." "Your xenobiologists studied a traumatized prisoner," Captain Lee replied firmly. "They never tried to communicate with it. They never showed it kindness. They treated it like a dangerous animal and then wondered why it acted like one." The Secthorac raised its head and looked directly at Velamon. The creature's patterns flared brightly, and it made a series of sounds that were clearly directed at the crystal being. The translator in Dr. Kim's hands began working frantically to process the complex communication. "It's talking to her," Kim said with excitement. The translation is still rough, but it seems to be asking about others of its kind. "It wants to know if there are more Secthorac in captivity." The creature's 6 eyes focused intently on Velamon, waiting for an answer. When none came, it made the sound again, more urgently this time. The bioluminescent patterns shifted to urgent orange and red, but not the aggressive colors from before. These were the colors of desperate hope. Around the chamber, alien delegates began whispering among themselves. The implications of what they were witnessing went far beyond humanity's membership application. If the Secthorac were truly intelligent, if they were capable of communication and emotion, then the Federation had been committing a terrible crime. Dr. Kim continued working with his translator, trying to establish basic communication protocols. "The pattern seemed to have grammatical structure," he reported. "Subject-verb relationships, temporal indicators, even what might be emotional modifiers. This is not just intelligent communication. This is sophisticated language." Ambassador Park looked around the chamber with growing anger. "How many of these creatures are in Federation custody? How many intelligent beings are being treated like animals because you refuse to acknowledge their sentience?" The Secthorac made another sound, softer this time, and its pattern shifted to the gentle blues and greens it had shown when the humans first showed it kindness. It was clear that the creature found comfort in their presence. "It trusts us," Captain Lee observed. "After years of abuse, it still has the capacity to trust beings who show it kindness. That's not the behavior of a mindless predator. That's the behavior of a person." Chancellor Rootwise creaked in his ancient chair, his bark-like face showing deep concern. "If what you suggest is true, then the Federation has made a grave error." "But how can we be certain? The Secthorac have never shown these behaviors before." "Because you never gave them the chance," Dr. Kim replied, his scanner now picking up complex brain activity that clearly indicated higher cognitive functions. "You approached them with fear and weapons. You kept them isolated and punished. You treated them like monsters from the very beginning." The creature seemed to understand the conversation, even though the words were in languages it had never heard before. Its patterns became more animated, cycling through sequences that seemed to tell a story. Dr. Kim's translator worked to keep up with the complex narrative. "It's trying to tell us about its home," Kim announced. "About pack behavior, about family structures. The Secthorac are not solitary hunters. They're social creatures with complex relationships." The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Social predators were considered among the most dangerous species in the galaxy, capable of coordinated attacks that could devastate entire colonies. But they were also, by definition, intelligent enough for complex civilization. Ambassador Park continued to comfort the creature as it told its story through light and sound. "How many of your people are captive?" she asked gently. "How many are alone and frightened like you were?" The Secthorac's response was heartbreaking. Its patterns dimmed to deep, sad blues, and it made a low, mournful sound that needed no translation. "Too many, far too many. We have to help them," Park said, looking around the chamber with determination. "If these creatures are intelligent, if they're capable of communication and emotion, then keeping them captive is a crime against sentience itself." The creature seemed to understand her words and her intent. It lifted its massive head and gently pressed it against her shoulder in a gesture of gratitude that transcended species barriers. The bioluminescent patterns on its hide brightened to warm, hopeful colors. Dr. Kim looked at his readings one more time, confirming what he had already begun to suspect. "The neural complexity is comparable to our own," he announced. "The Secthorac are not just intelligent. They may be as intelligent as humans, possibly more so. We're not looking at a predator. We're looking at a person." The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. The Federation's treatment of the Secthorac was not just cruel, it was genocide. They had been systematically capturing, imprisoning, and torturing an intelligent species for centuries, and the humans had been the first to recognize their personhood. Ambassador Park Ji-hai stood slowly, her hand still resting on the Secthorac's massive head. The creature had grown quiet, its bioluminescent patterns cycling through soft, peaceful colors as it rested beside the humans. The contrast between this gentle giant and the terrifying predator that had charged them minutes earlier could not have been more stark. "You wanted to test our nature," Park said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. "You wanted to see how apex predators react when faced with something stronger than themselves. Well, you have your answer." She gestured to the peaceful scene around her. Captain Lee sat cross-legged beside the creature's head, gently stroking the armored ridges above its eyes. Dr. Kim continued his scans, documenting the remarkable intelligence they had discovered. The Sekhthorak itself lay quietly, its 6 eyes alert but calm, occasionally making soft sounds of contentment. "We didn't run," Park continued. "We didn't attack. We didn't try to dominate or control. We did what humans have always done when faced with a frightened, dangerous animal. We tried to understand. We tried to help. We tried to make friends." Hive speaker Clickthar's clicking sounds had become rapid and agitated. "This proves nothing. You have temporarily calmed one creature through some kind of predator bonding behavior. This does not change what your species is." "You're right," Captain Lee said, not looking up from the creature he was comforting. "It doesn't change what we are. We are predators. We evolved to hunt and kill, but you made a fundamental mistake in your understanding of what that means." Dr. Kim looked up from his scanner, his face bright with scientific excitement. "The neural pathways we're seeing here are fascinating. This creature's brain shows adaptations for pack cooperation, complex problem-solving, and emotional bonding. The Sekhthorak aren't just intelligent predators. They're social predators, which makes them infinitely more dangerous," Velomon chimed, her crystal form pulsing with alarmed colors. "Or infinitely more capable of civilization," Park replied. "Social predators don't just hunt together. They care for their young together. They protect each other. They form bonds that last lifetimes. They develop cultures and languages and art." The Sekhthorak lifted its head and made a series of soft sounds, its patterns shifting to warm golds and greens. Dr. Kim's translator had been learning during their interaction, and now it provided a rough translation. "It's asking about pack," Kim announced. "It wants to know if we are its pack now." The simple question hit all 3 humans like a physical blow. This massive, powerful creature that could kill them without effort was asking if they would be its family. Captain Lee looked into the creature's 6 intelligent eyes and saw something he recognized from his childhood pets. From the soldiers under his command, from his own family. He saw loyalty, hope, and desperate longing for connection. "Yes," he said simply. "If you want us to be, we are your pack." The creature's entire body lit up with brilliant, joyous colors. It made a sound that was clearly one of happiness and gently nuzzled Lee's chest with its massive head. Around the chamber, alien delegates watched in stunned silence. This was not how they had expected the demonstration to proceed. The humans were supposed to show their predatory nature, not adopt a dangerous creature as a family member. Ambassador Park addressed the chamber again, her voice filled with emotion. "You asked us what it means to be predators. You wanted to see our true nature when faced with danger, but you misunderstood everything about predation and everything about humanity." She began walking slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with delegates from dozens of species. "Yes, we evolved as hunters. Yes, we killed other creatures to survive. But we also did something that apparently no other species in this Federation has ever done. We turned our greatest enemies into our closest friends." Dr. Kim stood and joined her, his scientific mind organizing the argument. "On Earth, we didn't just hunt wolves. We befriended them and turned them into dogs. We didn't just capture horses. We formed partnerships with them. We didn't just raise cattle for food. We cared for them, protected them, gave them better lives than they would have had in the wild. We took our predatory instincts," Park continued, "and we used them to protect rather than destroy. We used our hunting skills to track down lost children. We used our pack bonding to create families that crossed species lines. We used our territorial nature to defend not just our own, but anyone we considered part of our group." The Sekhthorak seemed to understand the conversation, even though much of it was beyond the translator's ability to process. Its patterns shifted to deep, thoughtful colors, and it made occasional sounds that seemed to express agreement or support. Captain Lee remained seated beside the creature, but his voice carried the authority of command. "You see predators as monsters because you fear them. We see them as potential family because we understand them. That's the difference between your civilizations and ours. Chancellor Rootwise leaned forward in his ancient chair. But surely you must acknowledge the danger. Even if these creatures are intelligent, they remain apex predators. They could turn violent at any moment. So could we, Lee replied. So could any species that achieved spaceflight. The capacity for violence doesn't make a being evil. It's what you choose to do with that capacity that matters. Dr. Kim checked his scanner readings again. The secthorax shows all the neural markers of advanced social intelligence. Pack loyalty, emotional bonding, altruistic behavior patterns. If this creature decided we were its pack, it would die to protect us. That's not the behavior of a monster. That's the behavior of family. The creature made a soft sound and shifted its position so that it was closer to all three humans. Its massive bulk surrounded them protectively, and its bioluminescent patterns created a gentle, warm glow around the group. Look at what's happening here, Park said to the chamber. This creature was presented to you as the ultimate predator, the perfect example of why beings like us can't be trusted. And in less than an hour it has become our protector, not through domination or control but through understanding and kindness. Hive speaker Click Thara's clicking had become almost frantic. This is some kind of trick. Some predator bonding behavior that makes the creature temporarily docile. No trick, Dr. Kim replied, showing his scanner readings to anyone who wanted to see them. This is genuine emotional bonding. The creature's stress hormones have dropped to baseline levels. Its brain activity shows patterns associated with contentment and security. It's not pretending to be calm. It genuinely feels safe and happy for the first time in years. Ambassador Park looked around the chamber one more time, her gaze lingering on each species representative. You wanted to know if humanity deserves membership in the Galactic Federation? You wanted to test our nature as predators? Well, here's your answer. She gestured to the peaceful scene around her, where one of the galaxy's most feared creatures rested, contentedly beside three humans who had shown it nothing but kindness. We don't just deserve membership because we're civilized, despite being predators. We deserve membership because we're civilized, because we're predators. Our hunting instincts taught us to understand other species. Our pack bonding taught us to care for those different from ourselves. Our territorial nature taught us to protect the innocent. The secthorax lifted its head and looked around the chamber, its 6 eyes taking in all the alien delegates. Then it made a long, complex series of sounds, its bioluminescent patterns flowing in intricate sequences that clearly carried deep meaning. Dr. Kim's translator worked furiously to process the communication. When it finished, he looked up with tears in his eyes. It's thanking you, he said to the chamber. All of you. It's thanking you for bringing the humans here, because for the first time in longer than it can remember, it's not alone. The silence that followed was profound and uncomfortable. Every delegate in the chamber was forced to confront the implications of what they had witnessed. The test designed to expose humanity's dangerous nature had instead revealed the depth of their capacity for compassion and understanding. The silence in the council chamber stretched for long minutes. Every alien delegate stared at the impossible scene before them. 3 humans sitting peacefully, beside a creature that was supposed to be the ultimate proof of why predator species could not be trusted in civilized space. That the secthorax had positioned itself so that its massive body formed a protective barrier around the humans. Its 6 eyes scanned the chamber constantly, not with aggression but with the watchful alertness of a guardian protecting its pack. The bioluminescent patterns on its hide had settled into steady, warm colors that seemed to radiate contentment and security. Chancellor Rootwise was the first to break the silence. His ancient voice creaked like wind through old trees. In 3,000 years of Federation history, I have never witnessed anything like this. A secthorax allowing physical contact with alien species, a predator choosing cooperation over domination. Dr. Kim Taeho looked up from his scanner, which had been recording everything. The neural activity patterns are unlike anything in our databases. This creature is experiencing emotions that we previously thought were impossible for its species. Trust, affection, loyalty to beings it met less than an hour ago. Hive speaker Click Thara stood on her 4 legs, her compound eyes reflecting the soft light from the secthorax bioluminescent patterns. For the first time since the humans had arrived, her clicking sounds were uncertain rather than aggressive. This cannot be dismissed as coincidence or trickery, she admitted reluctantly. The secthorax has never shown such behavior in centuries of observation. Even our most advanced behavioral specialists could not achieve what you have accomplished through simple kindness. Ambassador Park. Jihi gently stroked the creature's armored neck as she addressed the chamber. The question isn't whether this is real. The question is what you're going to do about it. How many more Sekthorak are in Federation custody? How many other species have you dismissed as monsters without ever trying to communicate with them? The weight of that question settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Resonance Prime Velamon's crystal form pulsed with colors that indicated deep internal conflict. If the Sekthorak are truly intelligent, she chimed slowly, then our actions toward them constitute crimes against sentience. We have captured, imprisoned, and studied them like animals. We have separated them from their families and kept them in isolation. Captain Li Dongwu continued to sit beside the massive creature's head, occasionally scratching behind what appeared to be its ear ridges. The Sekthorak made soft sounds of pleasure at the attention, sounds that were clearly communication rather than mere animal responses. It's not just the Sekthorak, Li said firmly. Your entire understanding of predator species is wrong. You assume that being dangerous means being evil. You think that having the capacity for violence means being unable to choose peace. The creature lifted its head and made a series of complex sounds, its pattern shifting to urgent oranges and yellows. Dr. Kim's translator had been learning throughout their interaction, and now provided increasingly accurate interpretations. It's asking about others, Kim announced. Others of its kind who are still captive. It wants to know if we can help them. The simple request hit the chamber like a thunderbolt. This was no longer just about humanity's membership application. This was about the fundamental nature of justice and civilization itself. Ambassador Park stood and faced the assembled delegates. We propose a new arrangement, not just membership for humanity, but a complete reevaluation of how the Federation treats predator species. She began walking around the chamber again, her diplomatic training finally finding its footing in this unprecedented situation. Earth will establish an interspecies sanctuary and rehabilitation center. We will take custody of all Sekthorak currently held by the Federation and work to heal the trauma you have inflicted upon them. The murmurs that arose from the delegates were a mix of shock, concern, and growing interest. Several species that had remained silent throughout the proceedings began to speak among themselves in urgent whispers. Dr. Kim stood and addressed the scientific aspects of the proposal. We will study their language, their culture, their social structures. We will learn everything we can about their needs and their nature, and we will prove that intelligence and predation are not mutually exclusive. The Sekthorak seemed to understand the conversation and made more sounds, its patterns brightening with what could only be described as hope. The translator worked to process the complex communication. It says there are young ones, Kim reported, his voice thick with emotion, children who have never seen their homeworld, never learned to hunt or play or form proper pack bonds. It's asking if we can help them too. The revelation that there were Sekthorak children in captivity sent shockwaves through the chamber. Even the most hardened delegates found themselves disturbed by the implications. Captain Li's voice carried the authority of absolute command. Those children will be our first priority. No intelligent being should grow up in a cage, isolated from their own kind. Chancellor Rootwise raised one branch-like arm for attention. This proposal has merit, but it also carries enormous risks. If humanity is wrong about the Sekthorak nature, the consequences could be catastrophic. If we're wrong, Li replied, then we'll face those consequences. But if you're wrong, then you've been committing genocide against an intelligent species for centuries. Which risk is really greater? The Sekthorak made another sound, softer this time, and gently nuzzled Captain Li's shoulder with its massive head. The gesture was so clearly affectionate, so obviously that of a thinking being expressing gratitude, that several delegates gasped in recognition. Hive speaker Klikthara clicked rapidly for several moments before speaking. The Vextai Collective has always prided itself on logical decision-making. The evidence before us suggests that our previous assessments were flawed. If humanity is willing to take responsibility for the Sekthorak rehabilitation, the Vextai will support this proposal. The statement sent ripples of surprise through the chamber. The Vextai had been among humanity's strongest opponents, and their support would carry enormous weight with other species. Resonance Prime. Velamon's crystal form pulsed with resigned colors. The Kurath Commonwealth concurs. Our crystalline nature makes us slow to change our opinions, but the evidence is undeniable. We have misjudged both humanity and the Secthorak. One by one, other delegates began to voice their support. The elder oak spoke of the wisdom in second chances. The whispers discussed the beauty of unexpected friendships. Even species that had never taken a position on human membership found themselves moved by what they had witnessed. Dr. Kim checked his scanner one more time and smiled. The Secthorak's neural activity is showing patterns we've never recorded before. It's not just happy or content, it's hopeful. It believes that things can get better. Ambassador Park felt tears in her eyes as she realized what they had accomplished. This wasn't supposed to be about proving we're not predators. It was about proving that being predators doesn't make us monsters. The creature made a long, complex series of sounds, its bioluminescent patterns flowing in beautiful, intricate sequences. When Dr. Kim's translator finished processing the communication, he looked up with wonder. "It's not just thanking us," he said. "It's welcoming us. It says that if we are willing to be packed with the Secthorak, then the Secthorak will be packed with all of humanity." Captain Lee scratched behind the creature's ear ridges one more time and felt the rumbling sound of contentment that vibrated through its massive body. "I think we just made the most dangerous friends in the galaxy." Chancellor Rootwise stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking with the effort. "The Galactic Federation Council will now vote on humanity's application for full membership. All those in favor?" The chamber filled with sounds of approval in dozens of alien languages. Clicks, chimes, whistles, and harmonics that all meant the same thing. "Yes." "The motion carries unanimously," Rootwise announced. "Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Federation, with all rights and responsibilities thereof." But the applause that filled the chamber was not for humanity's membership. It was for the impossible friendship that had formed between three humans and a creature that was supposed to be their natural enemy. As the Secthorak settled down for what appeared to be a nap, using Captain Lee as a pillow, Ambassador Park addressed the chamber one final time. "You presented a predator to frighten us," she said. "Instead, we found family. Maybe that's what civilization really means. Not the absence of dangerous things, but the ability to find friendship even in the most unlikely places." The creature's bioluminescent patterns pulsed gently in the dimmed chamber light, creating a warm glow around the small group of humans and their unlikely new friend. It was the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. A partnership between apex predators that would reshape both species' understanding of what it meant to be civilized. Dr. Kim made one final note in his research log. "Day 1 of interspecies pack formation. Successful beyond all expectations." The Secthorak are not monsters. They're just people we hadn't learned to talk to yet.